I've been living in Thailand for the past 14 months, and don't get me wrong, I love it here. The people, the food, the culture, and the chaos, it just makes you feel alive. But lately, the cracks have been showing. Just 9 months ago was the earthquake, which was like a literal wake-up call of what might happen here if a natural disaster struck. Then there are the rising tensions with Cambodia next door. You read the headlines and you start looking at the map a little bit more often. But the real fear, it's the money. Recently, I've read about expat bank accounts getting frozen. Then there was the widespread internet outage just a couple of months ago with Cloudflare. Websites like Amazon and ChatGPT were all down. And this made me realize I was exposed. I really don't have a plan B. I don't have a go bag for my money. So I made a pact with myself. I'm coming home with two things: my global entry approval and access into the most stable financial system in Southeast Asia, Singapore. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, I haven't been exactly the biggest fan of Singapore. You see, I was here over 12 years ago, and my memory of it was basically super hot, humid, and expensive. I love the people, the food's amazing, but coming from Bangkok where every street corner is like an adventure, Singapore is like a Disneyland with tons of red tape. I landed with pretty low expectations. I figured I'd just get in, eat some overpriced food, and most importantly, ace my interviews. But this gave me a chance to catch up with a lot of my old friends from the US who now live in Singapore, anywhere between 12 months and 17 years. I asked them, what is the appeal here? And does it really cost $100,000 US just to drive a Honda Accord? They understood, but they looked at me like I was the crazy one. Basically, they told me, look, we're not here exactly for the excitement, but we're here for the stability and the infrastructure. Everything just works. Cleanliness, order, economic growth. You know that feeling back in the US where you're walking home alone at night and you gotta watch over your shoulders? Well, you never have to worry about that here. And I decided to put my friend's theory up to the test. I hit the pavement in the heart of downtown. And I mean, wow. If you live in Bangkok, you know that feeling every time you go to walk on the sidewalk. It's basically an obstacle course of loose wires, broken tiles, ankle breakers waiting to take you out. But here in Singapore, the sidewalks are flat, pristine. You can basically eat off them. And I'm walking through the financial district. Granted, it was a Sunday afternoon, but it was eerily quiet. I couldn't quite figure out why, then it hit me. There are no motorbikes here. In Bangkok, the soundtrack of your life is basically 100,000 motorbikes roaring past you at every direction. Here, I could actually hear birds chirping. It was such a contrast, peaceful, but also kind of shocking. And then I took the public metro, the MRT, spotless, punctual to the second. And then I took a Grab taxi car, and oh my gosh, every one of them was spotless, immaculate. But then I ran into the flip side of this order. When I first landed down in Singapore, I was starving, so I went to the closest restaurant next to my hotel, and I went to get these $28 noodles. When I walked in, there was basically no one in the restaurant except just two people. So I asked the owner, hey, can I sit at this table that's facing the street, had a great view? But he looks at me, looks at the empty restaurant and says, cannot sit at one person table. So I had to sit in the corner of the restaurant with an obstructed view. I had to literally poke out my head to see the street. Now back in LA, I would have definitely called him out and said, why not? But I realized this isn't LA, this isn't Bangkok, this is Singapore, and there are rules here. They cannot be bent. And I didn't dare want to risk that. I'm not gonna lie, that level of rigidity did kind of annoy me. But then I saw the flip side of that later that night. I found myself at the National Stadium for the largest female K-pop group in the world, Blackpink. I know I'm not the target demo, but I was in town and had to stop by to check them out. Picture this, 50,000 people, high energy, high humidity. In the US, that is a stampede. You're fighting for your life. In Bangkok, that is definite gridlock and a free-for-all getting out. I stood there watching this army of polite K-pop fans, and then the logic finally hit me. When you're 25, you want chaos, you want that edge. But when you're a Gen X guy who gets Three's Company and Miami Vice references, you want a backup plan that is boring. You want systems that don't break under pressure. If Singapore can manage a crowd this perfectly, I'm very confident it can manage my emergency fund. And here I realized the vibe check is done. I was sold. Now I wanted more than just a bank account, but maybe even the lifestyle. But wanting it and getting it are two different things. There are 3 large Singaporean banks. I set my sights on UOB because they have a large presence here in Thailand. Now, to take a step back, banking in Singapore isn't like banking in the US. You can't just walk in with a smile and open up an account. First, for me, I had to jump through some digital hoops, which involved having an actual video interview with a relationship manager from UOB. She asked me some basic questions and wanted me to verify my identity, residence, and proof of funds. Basically, it was a criminal vibe check to make sure I wasn't shady or laundering money like Heisenberg from Breaking Bad. So I put on a collared shirt, answered her questions, and voila, she was happy to set up a meeting with me in Singapore. So fast forward to this moment, I walked into the UOB office feeling really good. I had all my documents ready, answers rehearsed, even did a role play interview with ChatGPT. I walked in and the relationship manager was super welcoming, asked me for coffee or tea, and then we got down to the brass tacks and I laid out my request pretty candidly. I told her I'm not looking to invest in anything aggressive. I just wanted a multi-currency savings account I could have access to my cash easily. Now I shared this during the interview on video, but when I told her in person, her smile dropped. And it's almost like the temperature in the room dropped as well. You see, she was well aware that I am a US citizen. And for those of you who don't know, the US passport is a superpower travel document, but in the banking world, it can be a curse because the US government mandates something called FATCA. Basically, the IRS wants to know everything going on with your money, which requires a mountain of paperwork and compliance headaches for banks. So she told me, because you are a US citizen and a non-resident of Singapore, your options here are quite limited and we can't offer you just a simple savings account. And it dawned on me, they didn't want a saver, they wanted a wealth client. Insurance, life policies, term limits. I asked to look at the fine print and that was the kicker. High fees of 2 to 3%, lock-in periods of 5 to 10 years. And the kicker is, I don't have any children, just my dog. My whole objective was to have a ready-to-go offshore go bag for my money, but this was handcuffs. I tried to negotiate, I asked for other tiers, but she said, sorry, this is all we can offer you. The door was shut. And I just remember walking out of the building and the Singapore humidity hit me and I realized likely my Singapore banking dreams were dashed. I even walked across the street to the HSBC office to see what options they might have, but guess what? Same story. US citizen, non-Singapore resident, insurance only. I realized you can't call the plan B if your cash is held hostage by an insurance policy. And if the world is ending, I can't wait 30 days for insurance redemption that may not even be approved. So was the trip a total bust? On paper, yes, I got approved for global entry. Mission A accomplished, but mission B failed. I still don't have an offshore bank account. And honestly, the rejection forced me to zoom out. I realized that plan B isn't just where you park your cash, it's also where you park yourself. I love my life in Thailand. I love the freedom and I'm definitely not packing my bags anytime soon. But this trip showed me what stability feels like. The safety, the order, the peace of mind. As I get older, I realize I crave that more than I actually realized. Singapore might not be the banking hub I had hoped for, but it set the bar for the quality of life I'm looking to secure for my tomorrow. The search isn't over. I'm gonna keep looking for that sweet spot between the freedom of Thailand and the safety and stability of Singapore. So let me ask you guys, especially the ones considering making the move abroad, if you had the choice between the absolute freedom of chaos or the expensive price tag of security and stability, which would you choose? Let me know down in the comments below. And just remember, it's all up to you. If you've enjoyed this video, you definitely have to check this one out here.